Circular Fashion Economy, a Zero Waste Future. Gordon is a final year human geography undergraduate at SFU who is passionate about the circular economy, consumption, and sustainability. Gordon spent the last 4 years working abroad in London, Rotterdam, San Francisco, and Shanghai in global digital marketing and brand strategy. I'm so jealous of that. And he had roles with Apple and AIESEC International. Please welcome Gordon to the stage.
I'm also really glad my dad's here today. So this story began right here in London. I was invited by one of my mentors to visit the Burberry fashion show exactly a year ago. And here I was at the show wearing an H&M suit. I felt so out of place. But this experience helped me realize actually, where did all these clothes go? What do we do with all our clothes once we're done with them? And I never actually thought twice about what I do after I shop. So this is how I came across this topic of the circular economy, specifically within the fashion industry, and how we can make it more sustainable and efficient. And within the fashion industry, it's a huge one. It's $3 trillion worldwide. It's the second world's most polluting industry, only after oil, and it consumes immense amounts of natural resources. I didn't even realize that producing a t-shirt would cost that much water. So really the model I'm looking at today was, why do we take, make, and waste? We just chuck it all out, we throw it all out, but we actually haven't thought twice about how this economic system is actually destroying our planet. And this is how I came across my research on the circular economy. Can we actually take waste and use it to make capital rather than see it as a sort of excess? Instead of throwing things away, can we see it as a recycling and reusing method? And little did I realize that most of our clothes today are actually not recycled and they're literally thrown away in the landfill. And how did we get here? So from 1960 till today, we've now consumed 40% more clothing than we did back then. And at the same time, we are buying clothes that is outsourced, made often in developing countries where there are horrible labor standards. Although they are improving, they are still not what it could be. And at the same time, there's sort of a hidden little nugget in this conversation. We all know what cotton is, we are used to it, but there's actually another fiber within our materials called synthetic fibers, which is specifically like polyester. This material is oil-based. Although it does not use as much water, it is energy intensive and chemically intensive. So I didn't realize actually when I go shopping, most of my clothes nowadays are actually polyester. Like this suit, I thought maybe it was a cotton-based suit, but I looked, actually when I did this research, most of my clothing is actually polyester-based. You might actually find that yourself if you go home and look at your clothes. And the problem with this is the fact that over the years, since H&M first launched their first store in New York City, polyester has taken off like a rocket ship. It's dominated the material mix of all of our clothing, and that has tremendous consequences because it is oil-based, and also the fact that it is non-biodegradable. So we're buying more, and at the same time, we actually still feel worse. We have a culture of insufficiency, and despite having more, we always feel like we have nothing to wear, and I felt like that this morning. So the problem really at hand I was thinking was, what can we do with all our clothes? And I came across this topic of textile recycling. I actually never thought about that. The only topic I've ever thought about is donating your clothes, but there's actually a whole side of this equation. So according to the Environmental Protection Agency in the United States, about 85% of consumers today still throw out all their clothes to the landfill. Only 15% of their clothing actually end up recycled or donated. Yet there's hope. That 15% already equates to removing 1 million cars off the road. Now, what if we could turn that from 15% to 30%, all the way to 100%? And at the same time, by recycling, we're reducing our dependency on virgin materials, which require immense amounts of energy to make. More and more clothes are being made by recycled materials, and as you can see in a lot of retail stores today, there are eco-conscious collections that are actually made from recycled fibers. In Vancouver specifically, in 2015, there was a waste study done, and it shows that around 42 pounds of textiles are still thrown out every year in our own city. And I was thinking to myself, especially in my urban planning class, we want to be the greenest city by 2020. And I did a little bit of research, and I was like, where's the textiles waste strategy? There actually wasn't one. Although we're used to recycling paper, pop cans, and now our organics, we've never thought twice about textiles. So I was like, okay, I think there could be something done here. So I went and looked, around the world. Actually, this is a common problem. Most cities today have not adopted a textiles waste strategy, and most of it is still put in the landfill and incinerated. And at the same time, if all the clothes that are thrown away, 95% of that can be recycled, reused, or reworn. So we're literally throwing out money. It's going to somewhere, getting burned, or creating chemical toxins in our soils. But at the same time, the challenge really is people just don't even know that you could do this. So most of you might think that your clothes go to donation centers and they get reused by someone else, but actually there's a whole other side to the recycling equation. Most of this is actually used in industrial rags and stuffing and insulation. And at stores at H&M, there's actually a donation bin next to the cash register in this H&M store where you can actually get $5 off your next purchase by donating your clothes. And at the same time, there are clothing retailers like Adidas who are taking up ocean plastic and turning those into shoes. So one final thing I wanted to just share with you really is in New York City, they typically cost about $20 million to take all that textiles into landfills. But they've now realized that problem and have adopted a zero waste strategy in textiles, diverting 200,000 tons of textile waste. So really, the topic I'm really sharing here is nothing new, it's nothing innovative. It's common sense that textiles recycling is a huge economic opportunity that could create new jobs while saving our environment and creating the circular economy. As I was doing my own research, I believe we can all become more conscious consumers in realizing this problem. As Anna Wintour once said, fashion is a reflection of our times, and if we're to become a more positive and environmentally sustainable future, we need to start with ourselves. So you are what you wear, and thank you.
Terrific. Oh, I already see hands up, so that's great. I'm going to go to the back here and let a few people back here ask some questions. Yes, thanks.
I was just wondering, you were talking about the huge fashion industry that employs so many people around the world. And I was wondering, in your new framework, do you see that as fitting into the fashion industry as it operates now, or would it have to change economically as well to facilitate this new type of fashion?
Yeah, I think actually what's interesting is the existing model is causing a lot of problems in those labor, where those people are working in developing markets. The key challenge for them is that their standards are really low, and most of the clothes made today are using dyes that use chemically intensive processes, whereas actually recycling reduces the need to go to those places that make clothes from virgin materials. So it's actually quite a shift in the labor side, and that is actually one of the major risks to the circular economy, because it would completely shift where clothes are made dependent on where those recycled materials come from.
There's another question at the back. I now have a mic runner. I'm very impressed with this. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I was wondering what advice would you give to Thrifty and Oxfam and other people who sell these clothes, but now they say the sales are going down because H&M and others are selling their new clothing much more cheaply.
Yeah, one of the major problems in the recycling side of clothing is the fact that we're buying 10 times more clothing, and that's driving down the value of clothing. So all these retailers who are reselling secondhand clothes are actually losing money because now people don't want to buy those clothes. So there's one problem actually beyond recycling is actually conscious consumption. There has been a trend actually where people are now buying higher quality products rather than buying $10 t-shirts and lasting longer. So that problem is actually resting on the consumers to change their habits and realize that buying 10 t-shirts is not sustainable. I might as well buy one that lasts me a long time.
Great. A last question at the back. Yeah.
Hi there. I really liked your presentation. I want to share same things. I was talking about waste heat and you're talking about waste clothes. But my question is, how does this really help the economy? I don't get it, because I really get it when you say it helps circular economy in the sense, for example, there are countries where you have the old GDP depends on the textile industries that affects the cotton growers. And if you don't produce new clothes, how it's going to help the farmers? And there are countries where our farmers are suiciding because of there are no buyers. Can you enlighten us on that? Thank you.
Yeah, one of the biggest areas in this research I came across, and I don't know specifically, was the fact that the government has a huge role to play in terms of incentivizing this transition. The main sort of caution was not to just simply say, hey, tomorrow we're going to be completely circular. but have a gradual transition plan to help ease the disruption of the circular economy. And in some countries, they're actually creating programs where they're actually incentivizing these types of suppliers to switch their methods while getting actually cheaper costs and lower taxes to mitigate that kind of change. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, we used to say the same thing about tobacco farmers in Ontario. What will happen when we suppress the tobacco industry? But they learn to grow other things as well. So I think it's a good point to think about the economic, but there are other crops potentially that feed nations, etc.
The biggest example I'd give is actually from the electronics industry. Most states in the US, for example, have banned electronics from the landfill, and that's actually helped drive 3 times more recycling rates. And that's simply a gradual shift from the old ways, but again, it needs to be transitioned.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Please join me.